My name is Stephen Sachs, and I'm the artistic director of the Fountain Theater. Great to see you here. Welcome. Welcome to all of you who have just seen our matinee performance of the fabulous world premiere of the important new play, Detained. And for those of you who did not see the play this afternoon but have come in to join us at this gathering, welcome. Great to see you here as well. And for those of you who are joining us right now on social media, welcome. We are live streaming this event right now as we speak on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and our Fountain Theater live Fountain Stream page. So welcome everyone to today's gathering. For those of you who saw the play either this afternoon or at some point in the run and have witnessed, experienced firsthand these true stories from families who have been caught in the immigration system in this country. The stories from families who have been separated and deported, of individuals who have been detained and deported, many of who have lived in this country for 5, 10, 15 years are still being taken away and sent out of this country. Many of you who have seen this work, either today, yesterday, or will be seeing it in the future, are asking yourselves, what can I do? I'm angry, I want to engage, I want to do something, I want to get involved. What can I do? So today is a gathering where we bring together a group of special guests who are here to answer that question, who are here to tell us all, what can we do? How can we get involved? How can we become more engaged? It's my great pleasure to introduce to you today's moderator, the leader of today's event. She is the Director of Communications at the UCLA Law Center for Immigration Law and Policy. Please welcome Gabriella Romero.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm more of a ground person, so I have this tendency to want to sit right there, but for audio purposes, I will speak to you here. My name is Gabriella Romero. I am the daughter of Mario Romero and Macarena Carretero, two Mexican doctors who obtained employment in the United States in a hospital in Miami where I was born, a hospital that Franz Luz, who's also from Miami, is very aware of. And honestly, it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I realized that not all Mexicans were welcome, like my parents were. And when I realized that there were 11 million people in this country that were one broken taillight away from being separated from their families, I decided to dedicate my life to uplifting their stories, their voices, and that's why we're here today, why I'm here today. Can I ask, how many of you have seen the play? All right, so the majority, but we have some that haven't. Detained is a compilation of true stories of what Steve said, of long-term residents of the United States that were trapped and jailed in our immigration prison system, most of them deported. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story about the first time I saw the play, because I think it speaks to its power. After the play, we had a talk back in which some of us were answering questions about the system as a whole, etc. And when it was over, this young man came up to me and asked me if I could take a picture of him with one of the actors. Of course, I said yes. I didn't know who he was. And as I was getting him in the shot, he told me that he was the nephew of the Haitian man whose name is Emmanuel Joseph Dominique, that was portrayed in the play. And he told me that his uncle was a tall and elegant man, a proud man, a polite man. And for the first time, when he saw his uncle being portrayed in this play, he felt like he could see him again, like he could see his pride, like he could see his courage. And he walked through the injustices that his uncle went through in this play. And I think it speaks to the power of hearing stories, of hearing true stories of people whose potential, instead of fomenting, we discard. The other part that was very, very interesting about the first time that I saw it was the anxiety in the audience. Every single person after seeing this play, and I'm sure the majority of you, say, what can we do? We're left with discomfort. We're left with a little bit of shame that we didn't know that the US runs the largest immigrant prison system in the world, incarcerating over 500,000 people in it a year. And I want to tell you about how this play came together, since Judy Rabinovitz, who commissioned the play, is not here. We do have Franz Luce, who will be up with us in a second, because I think it's important. A lot of us in this movement, and lawyers especially, are sometimes the only outside people that immigrants in these prisons get to see or talk to or even touch. And Judy, who is the Associate Director of the Immigrant Rights Project at ACLU and a law professor at NYU Law, spent decades going in and out of these detention centers, and oftentimes she was the only person who held these stories. And she thought, like most of us, if people know, if people see the reality of the system, if people recognize that the folks that we incarcerate, that we don't give lawyers to, that we rarely even get access to judges to, if folks realize that they're just like us, they'll be called to action. So she started writing these stories down, and writing and writing and writing for years, until under the Obama administration, the administration that oversaw the most deportations of any president, over 3 million people, she reached out to Franz Luce Benson, who herself is a daughter of Haitian immigrants who grew up in Miami, but herself has talked about how writing this play, and in the process of writing this play, learned things that she never knew about the system. And that's why we're here. We're here because once you realize, again, that the United States runs the largest immigrant prison system in the world, once you realize that the brothers, mothers, fathers, sisters that are in there are just like us, you can't unsee it, and you're called to action. So I want to welcome an amazing panel that we have of experts, of artists, some that were actors in the play, to have a conversation about how we got here and what we do. So if you guys can come on stage, I can introduce you as you're coming. Franz Luce, I'm going to ask you to join us as well. Rosie Arroyo, she oversees the California Community Foundation Immigrant Integration Portfolio. For 2 decades, Rosie has dedicated her career to the educational and civic empowerment of underserved communities. Rosie, thank you for being with us. Lisa Okamoto is the directing attorney at Immigrant Defenders Law Center, overseeing programs that represent families and individuals in removal proceedings, deportation proceedings, both detained and non-detained, and has been representing clients herself in this system since 2014. Franz Luce Benson, who is the playwright, an actress, and the playwright of the Detained play that you just saw. Michael Kaufman, a senior staff attorney at the ACLU of Southern California. Thank you, Michael. And Richard Montoya, who really is an LA-based filmmaker, playwright, and the co-founder of Culture Clash. I'm not sure if you guys have seen Culture Clash, but you should. Yeah. And really speaks to how art moves people. Somebody who saw these injustices and decided to act them out so that people could have access to these stories, because again, no cameras are allowed in there, and that's by design. So I want to start, and I thought Camila Asensio, who you all just saw. Please come up. And I actually want to start in the nucleus with Franz Luz and Camila, because through the creation and through the putting on of this play, their lives are also really touched and transformed by this. Franz Luz, can you tell us how it was that you came to write a play about immigration detention, and also what's come of it for you personally, in terms of how you reflect on your parents' immigration to this country and the system as a whole?
Okay. Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for doing this, and thank you all for being here. And hello, hello. Is that better? Okay. What was the question again? No, I'm just kidding. Well, how I came to write this play, it's pretty much what is in the play. The character that Marlo portrayed is me, and really Judy Rabinovitz cold called me nowhere. I think the novelist Ebich Nantakat referred her to me, but I didn't know Judy. She had heard about me. We met. She started, our first meeting, she had like stacks and stacks of like transcripts and documents, and she's been doing this work forever, and she just started monologuing basically for a couple of hours, just telling me about all these different stories. And at this point I didn't know a lot, even though we're immigrants. My mom is here today. But at that time, I knew most of what the media shows us. I didn't know that people who had been living here for many years, for decades, were being deported. I was living in New York at the time. I didn't know that there was a detention center right on Varick Street, if anybody's in New York, that I passed a million times every week, and I had no idea that that was a detention center. And the more that Judy spoke to me, the more that I was enraged, and the more that I felt a calling. I felt that it was my purpose to write this play. And a lot of the work that I do as a playwright is I write about issues around social justice. I write about marginalized communities. I write a lot about people from my culture. I'm Haitian American, so it was like a perfect fit. And it's been an honor and a privilege to tell these stories. As you said, some of the real people who I wrote about have seen the play. Emmanuel's family, they were here opening weekend here when we did workshops at the play in New York. Ravi has come to the play a couple of times. Claudia Slavensky, the real Claudia Slavensky, has seen the play. And they all just feel so seen and heard. And, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do as an artist. And I also want to affect change. I want people to leave here and feel activated and energized. And so that's why I wrote it. That's why I'm here. And it's been, when I learned about Camilla's father, which she'll probably tell you in a second, I'll let her tell the story, but Camilla's father saw the play and has his own experience with immigration detention, and it's an honor, and it's just a gift to be able to do this with my art, and that's why I feel like that's why I have these talents, is to be of service and to help others. So
Thank you. It worked. We're here. One of the things that you said, Franz Luz, is really spot on. Really, there's no way to know about these stories. They're not portrayed in the mainstream media. Less than 0.07% of the images that we see on the news are of immigrants, and those 90%, are folks that are in violent gangs, etc., not representative of the actual population. Also, on the first day that I was here, Camila pulled me aside and shared something that, we're so lucky and honored that you feel safe enough to share with us, but she told me, I too have family members that are undocumented. And so through the portrayal of her characters, she's really come to learn more about that. And Camila, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what's happened since you started acting in this play, especially with your father.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my father was, and I knew that he had been detained, but it's very traumatic for him to talk about. But through the show, he came to see the show, and he got to come on the night when I think we had, was Claudia here that? I think Claudia Slavinsky and Judy Rabinovitz were here that night. And he felt empowered enough to share about his experience in detention, and he shared that during the show he had flashbacks, things that he had forgotten about that he saw in detention that came flooding back to him, and it empowered him to share that to a room full of people, and to me.
And that's the thing. A lot of the folks that we imprison, there's a sense of shame about it. And so even among folks who are directly impacted, we don't know what happened. We don't know their stories. And this is why plays like this, whether it's at a personal level, or for folks that maybe don't have a lot of contact with folks that are undocumented or that could be put in these prisons, are so important. It's the only way we get to hear these stories. And it wasn't always like this. As we saw in the play, when Judy started practicing, the US incarcerated around 5,000 immigrants. That's still a lot of people without access to lawyers, without access to judges. In her lifetime, that's increased tenfold. And now, as I said, we incarcerate over 500,000 people in these centers without access to judges, And it's up to us to share those stories when we hear them. And I want to turn to Michael, because I want you to tell us, how did we get here, Michael? How did we go from